Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Lines on the Page, Season 2, Episode 8. I hope I did that right. Yeah. All right. So it has been a morning. And as you can tell, we are doing it in the morning and not at night. And the reason behind that is because my special guest here with me today just happens to be in Italy. So, given the time difference going on, it obviously makes sense. We have to do things slightly different, but you know what? It's still the same show. It's still the same nonsense, and we're still going to continue on doing it, and that's the best part about it. So, before we begin, we're going to be doing a quick little moment of just housekeeping per se. And Haven Comics is located at 1871 Slaughter Road, Suite F in Madison, Alabama. And please remember to like and subscribe. If you happen to like the show and any other show that we happen to do here on our Haven Comics YouTube page, smash that like button, subscribe to it, share, comment, all that fun stuff. And we're not just saying it just to say it. It actually does really help us out in the long term. And of course, if you want to figure out where you can find me on social media, you can go through my Linktree. Linktree.com/tpriceartworks, or you can just type in at tpriceartworks in any and every social media search bar you could possibly think of, if I haven't removed myself from some of them. So, without further ado, we are going to bring in one Mr. Jonathan Hedrick.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Thomas.
Yeah, not a problem. Like I said, Sunday mornings are usually not something that I like having giant conversations with, but you know what? We're feeling ourselves right now.
Good.
Yes, most definitely. So, for those who are not initiated to who, Jonathan, I need to move my hands this way. Orientation is backwards. For those who do not know who Jonathan Hedrick is, he is a comic writer and has been doing a lot of independent and Kickstarter comics. We even have some of them in store, including my personal favorite, Caffeinated Hearts.
Nice.
My personal favorite.
Thank you.
I did forget to bring in my copy of Dream Master. That's on me. We do happen to have copies of Space Cadets. We still amazingly still have copies of The Recounts and Quicksand.
Nice.
So, I'm pretty sure there's a couple others that I just did not get within the last couple minutes. But you know what? That's fine. We have them here. If you don't know where you can get them, you can actually just ask us, or you can possibly go to. I'm gonna figure this out with the orientation. Go to this guy's website. Get in contact with him on social media. He will hook you up. So, Jonathan. We're going to start it off like we usually start it off with the interviews, and that is the origin story, as it were. So tell us who you are, what got you into comics, the books that inspired and shaped your formative years.
Yeah. Well, I'm Jonathan Hedrick, like you said, like it reads down there. And, I always start my origin story off with the Ninja Turtles. I was a child of the 80s. And Ninja Turtles was a huge thing when the cartoon show came out. And I remember seeing one of the adaptations of the cartoon show in comic book format on a spinner rack at the grocery store. And I had to have it because, I had everything Turtles. I had the action figures. I had a T-shirt. I had the linen, bed sheets, curtains. My room was painted green. Everything was Turtles. So it had Turtles on it. I wanted it. And through that comic book, I, was introduced to the sequential storytelling that is, in graphic novels. And, that spun off to other things in time. I remember liking to get the movie adaptions of comic books. It was a way to, before the VCRs were so readily available, I could reread my favorite movie through comic books, those, thick square bound adaptions. I had one for the 89 Batman movie, and I think RoboCop and a few more. And that just I would buy things I was familiar with, properties, like the ones I mentioned before, and Aliens, and that of course led to some of the superhero stuff, and then continuing on with cartoons that were popular as I grew up, the Batman Adventures, the animated series, I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the X-Men series came out, the Spider-Man series came out, those cartoons were so faithful to the stories. I wanted more. When they had had Venom story on Spider-Man, I wanted more Venom. When they introduced Robin in Batman the Animated Series, I wanted more of that. And then when I found out there was multiple Robins, I just dug, and I loved the history and the mythos and how far back. And I kept on finding myself wanting to read the stuff that came before more so than the modern things. And as I got older, taste matured, and I was able to chew on some of the heavier stuff, like Watchmen and Sandman, Stray Bullets. Then in adulthood and more closer to the current times, there was The Walking Dead. Now that comic book was fantastic. Always top of the reading pile. And then, one day I decided to start making my own comics. I was always drawn towards writing. I was told in school that I should pursue it by several teachers. I remember that subject being, English and slash writing was something that I leaned towards and came easier for me. I remember getting marked off a lot for not keeping my answers to the maximum word count in other subjects. And I had a teacher say, most times I have to mark people off for not having a long enough answer. You answered too long. Like, oh, okay. And I wrote a lot.
Dark and stormy nights.
right. And I just wrote for fun personally. For a long time, composition books, nothing serious. I remember like 15 years ago entering some things into like sci-fi magazine and horror magazine website stuff, and nothing got accepted. But then I watched a live YouTube video like this that had comic book writer Doug Wagner, who did Plastic and The Ride and a lot of other things with Image. And I asked him, I said, how does someone start working in comics? How do you get into comics? And he said, the best way is to make a comic. And I was like, well, that's the easiest answer, but it is exactly the right answer too.
Right.
So, I started researching how to write, in this comic book script format. Checked out some books from the library, did research online, and I took a short story that I wrote in prose format, and I deconstructed that and adapted it to a comic book script format. And I had a 25-page comic book, and as far as the script goes. And I was like, well, now what do I do with it? So, I asked around, and someone pointed me to a Facebook group that led to hiring an artist. That artist recommended a colorist, and before I knew it, this was all starting to conveyor belt itself. Pages were coming in, things were coming back from the colorist, going to letterer, and then I had a printed copy of that comic book I wrote, and then that's when I realized, I now I know that side of it too. Now I know how I can make a comic book from a physical, tangible standpoint. And once I unlocked that secret, which isn't very secret at all, it's just a matter of, you know, finding the steps and having the money to do it. You know, I just kept on going at it with the other ideas I had.
So, speaking of writers, so you did mention Doug, which I absolutely love the ride. I feel like that's one that probably needs to make a bit of a comeback. It'd be nice. It'd be nice to have Stealth Freeze to come back to that again. Personally, did you happen to ever read the Alan Moore's Guide to Writing Comics?
I did.
Really short.
Yep, that little small thin thing.
Yeah,
I read it. It actually in the bookstore because of how short it was. I was just like, you know what, I'm going to sit down in their coffee area and just read this whole thing.
right.
Yeah. And there's a lot of resources out there.
Yeah. I actually recently found a copy of that because there was the daughter of one of our subscribers apparently was, you know, getting into the concept of comics, web comics, basically. And I think out of his daughters, I think one of them was more so into the art side. The other one was more into the writing side, but the two have never collaborated together.
Gotcha.
So I was just like, well, we just happen to have this. And so I pulled that out and was just like, give it to her, see what she thinks, you know, sort of thing. Maybe it'll help inspire, maybe it won't. I don't know.
Yeah.
It'd be hard not to, considering that, you know, this is Alan Moore before he became recluse, curmudgeon, wizard.
Yeah.
Rasputin.
Right. Neo Rasputin.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, aside from that, so I had a similar but yet not similar aspect in terms of my trying to get into comics. So my brother had a couple of comics laying around. One of them I ended up abusing more than the others, and it was actually the first appearance of Nimrod. I forgot which Uncanny X-Men issue that was off the top of my head, but that was the first time that you saw Rogue take multiple powers to try to beat Nimrod back out of it. Juggernaut had his ass handed to him, which I thought was hilarious because I had seen the X-Men cartoon. It's just like, there's no way, you know, sort of thing. And then I'm reading this, I'm like, there is a way. And of course, animated series Batman, which was just going through that yesterday, actually. Still holds up. Still definitely holds up.
100%.
Did you ever watch Cape Crusader yet?
I've seen like the first 2 episodes, I believe. The Penguin one and the Clayface one is the only one I've seen so far.
Yeah. So I know that Ed Brubaker wrote some of the episodes. He has executive producer for all of it, but he wrote some of the episodes, and I don't remember if Greg Rucka wrote the Clayface one or the Selena Kyle one. It's one of the two.
Oh, I saw the Selena Kyle one too. Yeah. I remember seeing Greg Rucka's name come across the credits as well.
Yeah. That was a shock to my system. It was just like, oh, well, that makes sense. But at the same time, it's just like, I don't really think about Greg Rucka writing animated stuff. So it was a bit of a shock to the system seeing that, which I think it maybe like Cape Crusader a little bit more than I should. It feels like I'm cheating on the animated series just a little bit. But growing up, going to Kroger's, sitting in front of the newsstand, when the newsstand used to be about, you know, I guess approximately 3 bookshelves long. And just anchoring myself, reading whatever was the hot current thing for that week, that month, whatever. And then, of course, Wizard. You know, that it was weird because, like, with Wizard, I didn't really pay attention to it the way that people older than me did. So I wasn't thinking about it in terms of like all of the cool insider creative side of it. I was looking at it more in the fact of like, oh, hey, there's the fan casting for
Right.
something, or these are the new books that are coming out. And of course, the beginnings of Toy Fair,
Right.
which is now
Yes.
Robot Chicken. So yeah,
Right.
man, it was. Which of course, in that same time period, Celebrity Deathmatch was a thing, and
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to come back. For being honest, I feel like some people need to hash it out, like
Right.
whoever, like Drake and whoever he has beef with.
Right.
I feel like that
Yeah.
would be a good one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely one of those things. But I remember the first comic that I ended up buying, which was Tarzan versus Predator.
Oh.
Did not realize until about 20 years later that that was Walt Simonson
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
did that. I had no clue that was one of his books. I thought it was, someone else entirely, like Mike Mignola or whoever.
Sure.
But that was not the comic a 6-year-old should be buying.
Right.
And my mom quickly found that out and ended up in the trash. So that was a bit of a trauma experience. But she didn't stop me from reading comics or wanting to go straight to, the newsstand and read it and all of that. And then, of course, we get to the late 90s, and that's where I have my first full-on experience with manga and just being experiencing what's happening on the other side of the globe and seeing the similarities and also differences, culture differences with what gets shown. And God, my computer keeps going off. At first I thought it was Discord. I'm like, that's not Discord. And then let's see what happens afterward. And this is when Ultimate Marvel comes, early 2000s, and that really brings me back into the big two. So at least with Marvel, of course, you have the iconic Spider-Man issue where it's 9/11.
Oh yes, yeah.
Before we get into the Ultimate Spider-Man, so I remember reading that one. I remember reading the first several, obviously Ultimate Spider-Man, the Ultimates, which to this day I still kind of go back and read, and Ultimate X-Men.
Yeah.
Even though it had some highs and lows and questionable things.
Sure.
with the Maximoff twins. And then with DC, I was just so out of the loop. I don't know, there was just something about DC that just wasn't clicking for some reason until I read Gail Simone's run of Wonder Woman. Terry Dodson was doing the art for that, and I was just like, wow, I never thought of Wonder Woman being this badass. And so got me to go back into reading, a couple different Superman titles, which I think Stuart Eminem may or may not have been a part of during that time period. And of course, I guess that tail end of Justice League that was coming out. But yeah, it's one of those things where the circle just, it doesn't really come to a full circle. It's more like an amoeba at this point, because there's just been like certain things that just kind of like take me out of it and then bring me straight back into it. Most recent, the last 2 years, French comics.
Oh yeah,
I've been reading Black Sad.
Yep, that's good stuff.
It is, and some of the stuff from Humanoid, the Jodorowsky stuff, that's been really interesting to finally have copies of it, and I'm not spending an arm and a leg on Amazon to try to get this in my hands. Some of it is still waiting for the price of it to drop, but yeah, I still need to get my hands on it. But it's definitely one of these things where it's just like, it's all well and cool that we had the big two. And yeah, there's going to be some good stuff that's comes out, and there's going to be some not good stuff that's going to be coming out of it. But we have, companies like Dark Horse and Image, and of course, I don't want to call them new because they've been around for probably 15, 20 years. But, you know, you have IDW and Boom and Dynamite, a few others. A couple of them we probably shouldn't be listing.
Right.
I don't want to get nuked on YouTube because of a certain company, but yeah, it's definitely interesting to see it. And the biggest surprise has been Mad Cave as of late, with all his IPs that they've been rolling out.
Right. Yeah.
Dick Tracy did not see that coming. Flash Gordon and Defenders of the Universe did not see that coming at all.
Yeah. Gotcha, man.
Yeah. Now I have expected Gotcha Man to be on Dynamite for some reason, but it just ended up on Mad Cave, and so that really caught me off my guard. But at the same time, I guess that means it gives more of a reason for Alex Ross to do more covers.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So,
yeah.
It just kind of happens. God, Alex Ross. All right. So now we're going to get into the second part of the, I guess, not really so much an origin story, but where you are currently. So as far as you're getting into comics, writing comics, which came first? You're doing pitches for independent companies or Kickstarter?
It almost happened simultaneously. So the first comic book that I printed out, the one that I mentioned before, that was called Freak Show Princess. That one, you know, I didn't even intend to do a Kickstarter for because I hadn't even understood that platform yet. But I had 500 copies of it printed. I had some support from local comic book stores that let me do some signings and small in-town conventions. And then, you know, I attempted a Kickstarter, not knowing really anything about it and how to, you know, the dynamics of the platform, and it wasn't successful. And then I was like, all right, I need to back a few projects, learn how these creators do it, look at their pages, what kind of rewards they have, how they price it. And then when I relaunched it, it was successful. I recouped some of my money. In the meantime, I had already printed out a second comic book, which was Capable #1, which, you know, I was doing the same thing, kind of selling it out of the back, the trunk of my car. And then I eventually did a Kickstarter for that. Then the third comic book I was working on, which I planned on, you know, doing the same thing like the other ones, was The Recount. And had no plans on pitching to that because I hadn't gone to exploring that world. Yeah.
Product placement.
Yeah, exactly. But I ran into Jim Howlett who at the time was a publisher at Scout Comics. I ran into him at Daytona Comic Con, and I had my iPad with me. And I was able to show him some of the interior pages I had gotten so far from the artist. And he's like, let me give you my card. When you get back, you know, email us and, you know, see, you know, about pitching it to Scout, which I did. A couple of weeks went by. I resent an email again because I hadn't heard back from them, because I thought that, you know, it sounded like it was a very confident conversation. And then that's when the ball started rolling, and before I knew it, you know, I had a contract signed for The Recount, which eventually came out like a year later. And then in the meantime, I was continuing to make other comic books and starting to learn the Kickstarter realm. So they kind of both happen at the same time, you know, doing the direct market and crowdfunding streams, which I think was beneficial to me in the long run.
Do you think that with, I mean, obviously now you're in Italy, but when you were still in America and you were getting your I guess feet wet, if you will,
Yeah.
and you're trying to do all this with Kickstarter. Did you feel like you had to adjust your prices as the inflation recession stuff was happening the last decade or so?
I've noticed the prices having to be adjusted more so in the past year or two. Um, but what at the time, in 2019, 2020, before the COVID caused a domino effect of panic of supplies and stuff, and hiccups in supply chains and paper shortage and stuff like that. Everything was fine. Um, and a blessing in disguise was the diamond shutting down, because then all the retailers were like, we need new comics. We don't care who it is. And there was a call for indie comics. And I had two comics. I had that one shot Freak Show Princess, and I had I had a #1 issue of a superhero series, and stores across America were paying wholesale price for those comics, which got me my name into their store. And I had people saying, "Hey, you have any more of those two comics? Or we've already sold out of them. Yeah, is issue 2 coming?" And then when recount was solicited, then they had my
Sorry, the first thing. Sorry, it was a total ADHD moment. But when you said, "Hey, do you have that whatever?" and I'm thinking about, did you ever watch Pee Wee Herman?
Yeah.
Okay, the guy who has that shop, it's like, "Pee Wee, we got that new whatever."
Right.
For some reason, that popped in my head when you said.
That's a throwback.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's all good. But getting my name ahead of time before my out into circulating in comic book stores prior to my first direct market release, that helped. But as far as prices go, I'm starting to see the prices really change now in the past year or two, with having to crowdfund and make and not not hemorrhage more money than it already is a hemorrhage sometimes.
Yeah, because that's always that whole high risk, high reward scenario when it comes to just independent creatives. It's just first off, believing that the product that you're putting out there isn't just like another project. It is a product. This is your brand. You're backing it.
Right.
Exactly the audience, which sometimes that audience can be fickle, but court of popular opinion, right?
Right.
But it's definitely one of these things where, we just have to constantly be on our toes and guesstimate, the possibility of, if something is going to change within the next 5-6 months, 1 year, whatever, can we pivot in order to make that scenario? And it definitely takes, I don't really want to say a creative mind, but it definitely takes a more business savvy mind to have that backup plan, basically.
Oh, for sure.
And looks like we have Paul Garish in the chat. Hello, Paul. Thank you for
Paul
this morning. But yeah, it's definitely one of these things where the very few and far things between that I've even been asked to do regarding Kickstarter, and it was just, hey, I'm doing an anthology. Would you like to do pages for it? Yeah, sure. Obviously, whatever credit that I end up getting is just the after effect of someone just happened to have bought it, they dropped it by my table, and I sign it.
Yeah.
So, which I'm totally fine with, the headhunter of said anthology ends up getting the financial side of it all, which is totally fine. And every now and then, if comps, are definitely a thing in terms of the other people involved being able to have it at a table, which that's actually something that I want to use Mark Spears as my example. Do you know who he is?
Yeah.
Okay. So he was actually talking to me about several months back, and this was when DC was starting to use them for his variant covers for Action Comics.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently he was doing, the covers he was asked to do originally were like 150s, which cool. You've got a ratio variant. The problem is it's just the fact of like he only received like maybe 2 or 3 comps of that particular cover, so he has to shell out money with whatever local stores that just happen to have that 150, sort of thing, versus any of the independent stuff that he has done where he hasn't had the issue of trying to get the comps.
Right.
So, and of course, now that he's been putting out more and more covers with DC, and the covers that he did for Kneel Before Zod, some of those have been my favorites that I've seen him done. And of course, he's done a couple of Spawn covers, and I'm not sure if I'm speaking out of turn, but apparently there is something in the works with him and McFarlane in the near future. I don't think I can say any more than that.
Okay.
Because don't want to jinx it, but I know it's something that he had talked to me about a couple of times when I've ran into him, and I know that he is putting out a monsters, like, I don't want to call it like a Universal Monsters type comic, but it has that feel. If that makes any sense. But that's supposed to be coming out within like the next month or so, which I'm actually pretty excited to see.
Right.
But yeah, it's just the comps aspects as far as just being part of the collaborative process, and I guess how the financial divvying in of it goes in terms of like, where you actually, I guess the difference between being a part of an anthology and then, I got, 5 or 10 copies as my comps. Whatever money I can make off of that, that's great. Will I possibly get more of them from said person? I guess it really depends on the collaborative process with said person versus, this is, I'm just going to use Stefano, for instance. So like you and Stefano put out Space Cadet, and if for some reason he needed to get more copies of this, aside from going to a local store, and obviously get in contact with you or Scout, or sorry, Scoot. I keep forgetting that they have that weird off imprint. Yeah. So let's delve a little bit deeper into Kickstarter.
Sure.
Rip the Band-Aid off. What do you feel like are the pros and cons when it comes to Kickstarter and other crowdfunding type platforms?
Yeah, as far as cons go, I'm sorry, let me start with the pros. The pros, there's a lot of them. There's one of the biggest ones is you're building your audience one project at a time. The one project feeds the next one as far as your audience goes. So, you launch another project, even though it's a different title, Kickstarter is going to email all those people, send them messages and saying, hey, you backed Thomas for this project. You may like his other project. And that is free, email marketing that you can't get from anyone else. I'm not sure if any of the other platforms do it. I would think, Indiegogo and Crowdfunder and some of the other Zoop do something similar. But speaking from my experience with Kickstarter, you're growing your audience each time. And if you can bring a good portion of those into your next project, then it only gets bigger and bigger. Also, the another pro is how the turnaround of you getting that tangible item in hand, which depends on how much you've invested in the project before even launching. But if you're already ready to go and print by the time you have the 2 weeks go by after your campaign is over and Kickstarter has sent you the money, now you can go to print, as opposed to comparing that to direct market. All right, I pitch to the publisher, I get accepted, I send them my files, they put it on their calendar, and then 6 months later it's finally in previews, and then 3 months later it's finally in comic book stores, and then another 6 months later I might get my royalties if it was successful. That is a long con.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying using con as in a derogatory way, but it's that.
Oh no, it's so derogatory.
It's so derogatory.
Bad.
Yeah, but that's the difference. How soon do you want to be get reimbursed for what you've put into it so far, and potentially even make profit from? Chances are in crowdfunding you're going to see that more, and it depends on how successful the project was, how much you put into it, but yada yada yada. But that's a big pro with crowdfunding is your return on investment if it's successful. So building your audience and you're recouping what you've lost or what you've already put into it. As far did you want to speak on that before I went on to the cons?
Yeah, well, it's actually a good point that you brought up in terms of just it being kind of like the long con, because and I've noticed this with a couple of different projects that actually did go through an independent company. Did you ever read The Hunger in the Dusk?
No, it doesn't sound familiar.
Okay, so it's funny you should say that. So IDW put out a creator-owned series called The Hunger in the Dusk. G. Will Wilson wrote it, and Chris Wildgoose did the artwork for it. The amount of, I guess, advertising for that particular comic was nowhere near what it should have been. And it sold extremely well here at Haven. I know it's sold extremely well with other places. So it's already got a trade. They're in their second arc already, which is fantastic considering the fact that IDW has basically kind of killed off all of their creator-owned titles and only stuck with IPs. And even then, they've already lost, as of right now, close to 4 of them within the last 4 or 5 years. So it was just one of these things where it's just like, this is a great book. How come you're not like really advertising it as much as you are with like Ninja Turtles?
Right.
It really doesn't make any sense versus, the stuff that you've been trying to put out with Kickstarter. I want to use Spill Blood as my example because the amount of advertising that you did for Spill Blood. And then of course, pretty sure I saw something about that in previews as well, which is another big thing to the fact that, sure, you can, do all you want with, social media and, maybe the website will update itself in terms of the new stuff that's supposed to be out there, but having the hard physical copy right in front of you, you can turn the page, it's right there. And I know because it's printed, sort of thing. Like that's almost second to none. And it kind of gives you that, what's the word I'm looking for? Help me, writer. that not really so much the feeling, but that sense of establishment. It's the fact that,
accomplishment too.
In the fact that, this product that I'm putting out there, it's getting the eyes, it's going to be getting traction, and hopefully everything will follow suit enough that people are actually going to want to get this in the store, aside from, the Kickstarter side of it all. So
exactly.
Now, aside from Kickstarter, you've been putting your books on Global Comics.
Yeah, I've been putting the things that I have, my creator-owned works that I have the full rights to, that I don't, isn't jumbled up with a publisher that has their digital, rights to it, as much as I can on Global Comics, just as a platform that's accessible to, everyone. It's not a huge money maker. I think I've made I made a little over $30 over using it for over about a year, but I'm also not flooding it with as much product or content as Image and Mad Cave and Vault can do. You get paid for people just looking at your pages, even if it's free. The free pages that you may have, they pay you for those views, but it's so small. But when you have a huge catalog, you're going to see more revenue come in. But it's just another outlet, to since Comixology kind of just became something else over the years. Global Comics has been a real good advocate for taking that missing, that void that Comixology, left, and capitalizing on it. There's already other platforms that could have Drive Through Comics, and they could have really this is our moment. Global Comics seized it, and it's easy to upload. It's easy to get on there. And they're supportive of creators. Right now they're doing a Creator Appreciation Month where they've shared my stuff out. Just as much as they share, not just as much, but they'll share Robert Kirkman stuff.
Build yourself up a little bit more.
No. Yeah, but Comixology never shared my stuff. That was owned by Amazon. They have the power, the ability to get in front of a lot of eyes, and they didn't. Global Comics does presently share my stuff, and I'm small fries compared to a lot of the other creators that are on there and publishers.
Even though I kind of derailed it with that whole thing with Global Comics, the cons to Kickstarter.
Yeah, the cons, the negatives are, it's just as risky as everything else. You don't know if your audience from the previous campaign is going to come back for this one. You're also on a platform where there's no selection process. So when you get into the direct market, someone more often than not chose you. You pitched your book to them, and they picked it and they put it out there. And there's some publishers that will take more things than others. And there's certain publishing houses where you look at and you're like, well, of course it's that publisher. So some are, you weigh the book on the what company it came out with, but on Kickstarter and other platforms, there's no one saying, yeah, we're not going to let you crowdfund that unless it doesn't meet their guidelines. So the con to that, that in itself is a pro, but the con part of it is it floods that platform. And now you're competing with 250 to 400 revolving projects in that same category at any given time. And there's only so many people that have so much money that can take a chance on this random guy's comic. So your goal is to be getting new people every single project. Sure, you want to bring back your other people too, but you want to be building. And I haven't had a steady line up. I've crowdfunded 11 successful campaigns in a row, and it goes up and down. But because I'm crowdfunding different titles, different genres, so it's unpredictable.
Yeah, I think that's been one of the things that has caught my attention in terms of your work history is the fact of you're not pulling a Donny Cates by doing the same story 5 times in a row with
poor Donny. Oh man.
So, I mean, at least I didn't say Rob Liefeld. So, if Travis Gibbs watched this, he's going to be so mad at me.
Yes.
It's just, sorry, but
it is what it is.
Yeah. So, but that's been one of the things that's really kind of piqued my interest in terms of your career is the fact of you will pivot from going, political thriller to sci-fi to kid story to Fifth Element in a coffee shop to, Spillborn, which I guess would be horror in a sense.
Yeah.
And of course, Can I Scream with Your Wife? That is
That's a fun title, isn't it?
Wrapping it up. I'll never let that one down. All right, so Can I Scream? The comic, the one that you did with your wife. So yeah, it's Francesca. So it's other comics that you've done throughout your career. It's just, which I can actually say, this is also a problem with artists. And that's something that I noticed about myself. That's just like, well, there's no way that I can continue on doing the same thing, 5 times in a row, because for some people, they don't care, and that's what they like doing.
Yeah.
And that's their gauge of interest. Makes sense. Go for it.
Right.
I think, I know personally with myself, it's the fact of like, yeah, sure, I can do superheroes all day long, but man, it gets so monotonous. It gets boring. Yeah. There has to be whatever. So, which is part of the reason why I've always gravitated back towards fantasy and swords and sorcery, while at the same time, I really like pulp, adventure type stuff as well, which, you can make it as cutesy and fun as possible or not. And the same thing with the fantasy side of it all. So it's interesting to just be able to be like, yeah, I'm just going to pull the plug on the fan art and just, gravitate wherever, and then maybe I'll come back and, do whatever. So it's nice seeing writers do the same thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I mean, as much as I like Garth Ennis' stuff, I feel like he, I'm pretty sure I'm not alone. Some people feel like, he should continue on doing Punisher. Well, he could, but you can tell that he has a passion for doing war stories, and it comes out. And of course, he does different branches and countries and stuff like that, which Blind Eagle, perfect example. You don't really see a lot of stories that are set in Australia during World War II. And so to read something regarding that, at least within American eyes, is interesting for sure. But in the same aspect, Jimmy Palmiotti.
Yeah.
Dude went from writing Westerns to redoing Harley Quinn to anything else that he decides that he wants to do.
Right.
Which he is actually one writer that I've been meaning to talk to in person that I just haven't got around to yet. And part of that is just because certain people's convention schedules are always like right at the time where it's just like I got something like super busy that I can't back away from or whatever. And as much as I wish I could pull like a Bruce Wayne and be like, oh no, I spilled something on myself, and then go to the bathroom real quick and then hop on my Batmobile and rush off to the nearest convention.
That'd be nice.
That would be very nice. So as far as we've already established pros and cons as far as just, the kickstarting side of it all. For a person that has never done any sort of crowdfunding, Kickstarter, whatever, what do you feel like would be the first couple of pointers of a person that is just going to be dipping their toes into this for the first time and they want to hopefully see more returns with more projects within the Kickstarter realm? Like, from your experience with the 11 and 12 campaigns that you've done, what is your experience that you're going to be like, listen here, youngin, let me teach you the ropes?
Yeah, I would say, especially if it's going to be your first campaign, pre-launch as soon as possible and drive people to that pre-launch page and start collecting emails now. Yeah, that is like my number one advice to anyone is start getting an email list now. Get a landing page and make that your everything that you say to everybody is driving people to that landing page. Get your email addresses, because your social media is not reliable. It's worse than it ever has been before. You can maybe count on 1 to 2% of your average amount of followers, and that's not 1 to 2% on each platform. Average your Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter followers. Add them up, divide it by 3, and then 1 to 2% of that is maybe going to back your campaign. So if you're average schmo like me, that's about 20 people, and that's lucky. And 20 people, and is 20 people going to get your funding goal? How high is your funding goal? So that's another thing. Keep your funding. I'm telling experienced creators this. Creators that have already had multiple successful Kickstarter campaigns. Lower your Kickstarter goal. I'm only doing 500 for my goal from now on. I don't care if I have some successful career at the big 2. I'm just going to keep it at 500, and that way I know I'm going to get some money.
Okay, we hear it. We've got it on record. If it gets a big, we're going to hold them to it.
Yes, all $500 campaigns after this.
Timestamp.
Right. I tell people this: if you set your goal to $4,000 and you raise $3,999, you get no money. If you set your goal to $500 and you raise $3,999, you get $3,999. I will give you that extra dollar if you needed an even $4,000. Okay, if I didn't already back your campaign. It's business 101. Some money is better than no money, and that goes for all businesses, not just comic books. So build your email list now, because you're gonna be sadly awakened at how little your followers are actually following you, and set your funding goal low. That's my 2 big advices, points to make.
Trying to add 1 or 2 extra things that'll get talked about in a moment. Forgot to do that. All right, so talking to myself. All right.
Nothing wrong with that. Just don't argue with yourself.
All right, so now that we have established basically self-promotion, Kickstarter, and just any and all things regarding just the independent business side of comics, let's go more into the creative collaboration process. Okay. What do you feel like are the things that you look for when it comes to, which of course this could go any and every direction, but like using any one of your books, what made you look for said person that made you want to collaborate with them for said projects? Is it a style over function thing, or is it more I get along with this person real well, and that's what ended up being the end product?
Right. I mean, besides the projects that I've returned with creators, the first time I've worked with creators, it varies. It could be a stylistic choice, mixed with price for their page rate against some of their other credits. So, for example, with Stefano Cardacelli, our first project together was Freak Show Night, and I was pointed in his direction by an editor that we both worked with, Andrea Molinari, and when I wrote the script for Freak Show Night, I had no idea that Stefano was going to be the artist. So I didn't match. I wasn't writing to his style. I had a lot more panels, and after learning, working on that project, I learned less panels the better for his artwork, because his artwork tends to lean towards bigger moments, and you need more. You need less panels to show those moments. Then Gino Casmianto for Capable. I knew that was going to be a multiple issue series. It wasn't just a one shot, so I had to really consider page rate for that one. And at the time, he had a page rate that I could not pass up, mixed with how superhero stylistic, mood that he had in his artistic style. So that fit really well.
And you're going on issue 6 with Capable.
Issue 6 just recently ended, and issue 7 is already done, but that's going to be crowdfunded probably in January, and then we'll put out a trade. So that's my 7 issue, dipping my toes into the superhero genre. If anyone asks for superheroes, I'm going to point them to Capable, and that's until the big 2 come knocking. I'll probably be my only superhero thing. But then,
I mean, Netflix maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? That'd be I won't pass that up. But then Gabriel Ibarra Nunez, who I worked with on the recount, he had a very realistic style, which I felt lended really well to a book like The Recount, with it being a political thriller, and it needed to be grounded in reality and serious. So, that's why he got the job. And all this is everything is also based on what I can afford at the time too. If they fit the mood but are too expensive, I can't get that guy.
Yeah.
You're very welcome, Josh Olive. Thanks for being on, man.
Yeah. The big man himself.
Yeah. That's not actually a picture of him, though.
I don't know. I mean, I see.
Unless he's in a suit.
I see Harambe in his silver mane. But yeah, so even though I did make a slight bad joke out of it, but we're going to go into the collaboration with your wife regarding Can I Scream?
Yes.
Now, this is really interesting because spouses collaborating with each other in comics is not a very rare thing. Well, it's not a very common thing. Personally, I could really only name 5 couples just off the top of my head. So how did that happen to work within you two guys? I'm also trying to be very good about how I ask questions, because I don't want you to lie and end up on the couch. But yeah, so just how did that just kind of come about, and it ended up being, I guess, what we end up seeing as this?
Yeah. Well, it was more of like hey, I'm a writer, you're an artist, and we're married. We have to do a comic book together. That was always there, but it was, when is the time going to be available to do it? And, how much can we invest into a project? So Can I Scream was already something I had in my pitch folder. And I reworked it from being a miniseries to the one shot that it is now. And I said, how about we just do a 32-page one shot? It's enough for people to chew on. There's room for more if we need it. And, it also had to align with her schedule too. And yeah, something we thankfully were able to do, and it sold out and got a second print. So, hey, I'm glad we did.
Yeah, and which I guess in some ways it also, I would say it would work both ways, in a sense that, because I know that you two guys usually table together with conventions, even if it's only one of you, obviously coming along just to help. But I think it works both ways, to the fact of just like, by the way, this is my husband who wrote this that I
Right,
drew,
right.
sort
Oh
of
yeah.
thing. So it just, the added, I don't really want to call it like self-advertisement, but in some ways it just kind of ends
Right.
up in that direction, so that if someone doesn't actually know who you are, and it's just like, oh, by the way, this is my husband that wrote this, and
Right.
also he's written a bunch of other comics as well, and it's just like, yeah, here's my
Yeah,
business card.
I mean, it helps when you're both marketing the same book. You need all the help you can get. And for the majority of my books, I'm doing 99% of the marketing, and that's taxing. And I don't, I only have as big as an audience that I have, and it's hard to expand behind that. But when you have, writer and artist, both creating excitement about it, and collaborating on the marketing. And then even Leo McGovern, the letterer on that book, he really pushed it too. And he works at a comic book store. Now you have three people really promoting a project. And I don't think you normally see three people. You tend to always see the writer. Sometimes you'll see the artist. But then when you get three people really pushing your book, and if your publisher finds the time to reshare, repost, that helps too. But that's why that book was successful. Is you had 75% of the team really pushing it.
Yeah, and that's actually a really good point, because you really don't see. I mean, yeah, sure, you'll see writer artists pushing it, but it's just like, how many times do you see the colorist also,
Right.
or the inker, or whoever?
Yeah.
And so, rare example would be Daniel Warren Johnson, because I'm going to use The Moon is Following Us, because it hasn't come out yet, but it's just the fact of like, it's not just him, but also Riley Rossimo that's been promoting it, and now, of course, his longtime colorist Mike Spicer, also promoting it as well, and that's without Image and Skybound also doing their promotion for it, too.
Sure.
So it's just like, well, I mean, that's already 75% of that, and that's not even including Russ, just the letters. So it's just like, it's
that's a recipe for success.
It is. Which I can definitely get how it would be hard for a letterer to advertise himself when it comes to this stuff. But yet somehow, like, Justin Birch is just somehow able to get like a lot of traction with his stuff. So it's just like, man, I hardly ever see you post anything on social media. It's just like whatever slabs you bought at a estate sale or whatever, and somehow it's just like, oh yeah, did you see a new Justin Birch thing he's been promoting? I'm like, where?
Right.
But yeah, it's definitely really cool to the fact that it's just creative couple. They were able to put this out and it be successful enough that you guys were able to get that second printing in, which is again rare. And something I've noticed about Francesca's art with some of the stuff that she's posted is that, and I think some of that also comes with just liking Stefano's art as well. It's just the use of watercolors in the comic medium. It's definitely and I wonder how much of this is just because I've been reading Black Set a lot.
Could be.
In other French comics, but it's just I've kind of been noticing, even if it was done digitally, the use of like the watercolor brush templates within the comic margin. I've been really enjoying that more than just whatever traditionally digital color with that, unless you're going like the Mike Mignola route with the flats with maybe a shadow added in. But it's definitely something about her art that I definitely like, just the use of watercolors, and it's something I enjoy about Stefano's stuff as well, with the watercolors, which, considering that we are talking about Italian names, Life in Italy.
Yes.
So You knew it was going to happen.
Right.
Talking about this.
Yeah.
So obviously you're enjoying it because I've been seeing your posts and your Substack with all the stuff that you shared.
Thank you.
When you had posted the thing about the barbecue, I have to question this because we're from this, we live in southern states. We know how barbecue is barbecue. So I want to ask, how did this work out?
That barbecue place was awesome. The people pulled right off the bone. Everything was made in house, including the beer, even the ketchup. The ketchup was made in the house. I mean, this wasn't bottled Heinz 57. The ketchup was made in house. So, as far as how what led us to that restaurant, my father sent me some money and said, "Here, go have a real American meal." I'm like, okay. So I told Francesca, I was like, my father sent us some money, but he has a caveat. It has to be American dining. So she looked up a place nearby, and this barbecue place that was about 30, 40 minutes away from us was pretty, it was American dining, with, Italian, I don't want to say flair, but I'll say like
ambiance.
No, not ambience. Inside was very, Western, not like Wild West, but it was
like steakhouse.
It had a very Italian passion to it.
Okay,
that was made with you could tell that they cook with art. There's people that cook to feed, and then there's cooking as an art form too. So that was
the plating definitely has some major difference because it's just like, oh, we're not in Logan's.
Right. There was no bucket of peanuts. You weren't tossing your shells on the floor.
No bar fights happening in the other booth.
No. It was a classy barbecue place.
Right. So since I know you have posted photos in terms of sodas, was it? It was Fanta. That's what it was.
Yes.
All the different Fanta flavors that you've been trying out. Which one has piqued your interest so far?
So out of the flavors I've had since I've been here, of course, orange is the staple one. Orange is like the second biggest. Fanta orange here is more popular than everything else other than normal Coke. That's like they'll have Coke and they have orange Fanta, and which is completely different from our orange Fanta in America. It's not neon orange here. It actually has juice in it. So a lot of people, it's surprisingly different, but it's still very good and it's very refreshing too. But the other flavors I've had, pineapple, which was also different than the pineapple in the States. I had a grape. I had one called Exotic, which was, I looked at the ingredients. It was a wide variety. And I had a strawberry and kiwi. Those are the main ones that stood out the most. So, strawberry kiwi is great.
Yeah, that piques my interest.
Yeah, I would say the grape one probably. And it wasn't labeled grape. It was called something else. But it was great.
It was called Purple Drink.
No, it was not called Purple Drink. What were they called it? I think maybe they just called it Madness or something like that. I don't know. But when they make these, and some of them that were available here in Italy were actually made in other European countries. And one of them came from Romania, another one came from Germany, but they all have to fit the EU standard of ingredients. So you're there, even if you can get those same flavors in America at like one of those multi huge mixing soda fountains that you do it yourself at Burger King or the movie theater. It's not going to be the same because it's different standards of ingredients, and it has to actually have juice in it if it has a fruit on the label.
Uh, for some reason, I'm working off of a fragment memory, but I could have sworn that you had made a post somewhere where you went to the movies and there was an intermission.
Yes, yeah. So we saw Quiet Place Day One,
Okay.
and that was in the original version. So the audio was in English, but it was subtitled in Italian. And those are far and few from where we come. But there's like one close movie theater nearby that does that, and they do it, once a week. And they took off the month of August of doing that, so it's been hard to see original version movies since I've been here. But yeah, there was an intermission in the middle, and I was like, "Something go wrong with the movie?" And she said, "Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, there's intermissions. So that's get up and you can go to the bathroom, smoke a cigarette,
Yeah.
grab another espresso." But yeah,
That is something that's poorly missed in American cinema. So, did you hear about that Kevin Costner Western that's like 3 hours long?
Horizon, yeah.
Yeah.
He likes to make long movies where he gets to play a cowboy.
Yeah. Well, makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's just like, so when I went on Google, and that was the one thing that I typed in was, does Horizon have an intermission? And of course, that's one of the first things that pops up in the Google whatever.
Yeah.
Apparently it doesn't, which is just like, you can't expect the average American who decides that they want to get like a regular Coke and popcorn. It's just like, they're not going to last an hour and a half without getting up to go use the bathroom and come back and miss something.
Yeah.
So, and that was actually something I noticed with like the tail end of phase 3 of the MCU. It's just the movie started getting past the 2.5 hour mark.
Right.
And it was just like, it's getting to that point where it's just like, well, cool that we're making longer movies now. Oppenheimer, for instance.
Yeah.
But stick an intermission in there somewhere.
Right.
Because it's just like, you can't tell me that we can't do that now. We used to do it.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it could. There's definitely movies that where that it's warranted to have an intermission. And there was a time I was using a service. It was an app that eventually I think got bought by AMC. It's called RunP. And yeah, RunP is exactly how it sounds. And it would, without giving you spoilers, it would tell you moments in the movie before you watch it, like you look for these triggers, and this is what they think is the best time for you to go to the bathroom without missing anything that's important, or worth missing in the movie. And I was regularly using that for a while.
Right.
I think that it was pre-COVID. I think the theater's getting shut down through my cinematic experience off, and I haven't got back to what it was before.
Yeah. I was lucky enough to see Tenet before it got yanked out of the theater during 2020. I mean, aside from seeing Multiverse of Madness, unfortunately, Eternals. What else? Brain fart. Indiana Jones, the fifth one. Dial of Destiny, that's what it was. Aside from that, I really haven't been going to the movies, which I hated the fact that I ended up having to wait until I hit streaming for Oppenheimer and Barbie, but that probably would have been the best time to go last summer. But so like this summer, for instance, Deadpool 3, perfect example. Alien Romulus just came out. Haven't seen it yet.
Right.
And it's just like, it's not the fact of like, I don't want to go see these, especially Alien Romulus. That has to be, the thing for me to go see in the movies so far this summer. But I think I've just become so accustomed since COVID to just not going to the movie theater anymore. And it's just, I haven't really even thought about doing it. Dune is a perfect example. I didn't really have the chance to go see in the theater, and I just ended up watching it streaming.
Right. I don't blame you. It makes sense for a lot of people. You have all the things in your house now. The quality of your home theater is doesn't take much to have a really awesome experience in your living room.
Yeah.
The the plasma HD TVs have gotten very affordable. I can pause it. I can watch the rest of it tomorrow if I wanted. There's nobody in the movie theater thinking that it's comedy hour. It costs a lot less. I have all the snacks and beverages I want. It's
And it
I hate
costs
to
half.
say it. Yeah, and it costs half the amount. So, yeah, the theaters are going to have to figure something else out.
Yeah. So going back to just being a creator, living in Italy. I'm not sure if you've ever watched the Ink Pulp podcasts on YouTube with Matteo Scalera and Eric Canetti.
I missed out
Okay.
on those.
So, of course, Matteo, being Italian, living in Italy, there was a episode a couple of months back where they were talking about page rates. And of course, they ended up having to censor out in post when Matteo was like giving out a number in terms of what he was making, and because he had no clue if that was considered good.
Yeah.
Of to Americans that are living in America.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, for him, he's making this money, and he's married, has a kid, and it's just like as far as I can tell, I'm living comfortably, in Italy, and I have no clue if this is considered good or not. In the sense of if you made this in America, in which the two of them said, "Yeah, that's actually quite good," especially given the circumstance. So considering, even though you are technically still kind of American, expat, whatever,
Right.
labels.
Yeah.
Considering that you are a creator in Italy now, have you felt a financial difference in terms of what you're doing currently now in Italy versus when you were living in Florida?
Yeah, I mean, cost of living here is way cheaper than it is in America. I mean, there's an astronomical difference, to the point where I'm able to live off of my writer salary, and I'm not, I don't have guaranteed work. I'm fortunate enough lately to have enough work for hire stuff that's keeping me, keeping a steady flow of income in. But yeah, I'm in the process of getting the Italian version of a green card. So I don't want to rely on just the comic book work. But in the meantime, since I can't work legally here anywhere else, anyways, I have to rely on the comic book stuff, and that's been enough to supplement for what I need, beyond what I get from the VA for disability from them still. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, I would not be able to do this in America. I would have to continue to work 40 hours a week to barely make it, and not have time for daily for the creative aspect.
That definitely makes sense for sure. Do you have to see if I can phrase this correctly without sounding stupid? How much? Okay, so with Italian currency, is that lira or is that something else?
Euros.
It's euros. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have to deal with much as far as just the conversion between U.S. dollar and euro, as far as I guess whatever that you're making, and then I guess I don't know, whatever the currency difference would be between that and that.
Yeah. So I'm getting paid in dollars.
Okay.
And the euro is worth more. So it's balancing out. The only bugaboo is the card that I use here. I have an international card, so when I take my U.S. dollars from my U.S. bank and transfer it to this international card, there's like a 75 cents, charge for converting it from US to euros. But that's going to go away in time. Eventually that card that I use is, I'm on a waiting list. They don't hand it out for free, but you eventually can get a US address on that international card. So when I transfer between currencies, it won't. I could use that card as my direct deposit or link that to my PayPal, and there won't be any conversion prices at all. So that's the only thing. And I'm curious to see how it works at conventions. I have some conventions lined up here in Europe, and I'm going to price things I'm going to advertise it as Euro price, but price it in my mind that I'm getting what I'm converting it in my head of what I should be getting in US dollars. So I'm not going to, if I want $5, US dollars, I'm not going to charge €5 for it. But, I'll probably charge €4 and get somewhere in between $4 or $5 and take that miss. But yeah, but I'm curious how that's going to work. But I have my first con here in Italy in 2 weeks. So,
all right, that's what I like to hear. Yes, U.S. invasion, taking pizza pie by storm.
Right.
Let's see. So, I'm trying to think. So I know that Lake Como is considered like one of the top tier Italian conventions. Yeah. I'm guessing it's on the same level as like say San Diego or New York.
Well, with Lake Como, that one, calling it a comic book convention is almost doing it a disservice because it's very selective, and from what I've been told, only artists are guests there. There's not like it's a festival of art, but leaning towards the graphic novel medium, and you have to be invited. There's not an artist alley where you're going to be sandwiched in between someone making Deadpool wind chimes and Harley Quinn Lego coasters, and somehow getting away without Disney coming down on them. There's not going to be anything like that, So comparing it to like San Diego or New York it's almost comparing apples and oranges, but it's on its own level. I would say that,
Yeah,
but fingers crossed.
Well, I was going to simply say I remember hearing something. I think it was from Frank Show that it was just like they were very selective in terms of like who they were picking as guests for every year. So there was no application. It's just it's kind of like the kumite. You have your guy who comes in with the whatever, and you have to accept or deny.
Right.
So I knew that about it, and I knew that from all the pictures I've seen, it's just very well placed out, beautiful landscape just around the convention area, so it doesn't look like it's a parking lot for cosplayers.
Right. It's nothing like that. And it's a place to meet the the biggest names as far as artist talent in that world. So I'm hoping Francesca can get accepted for it this year, since we'll be in, I'm not this year, but 2025.
Right. Yeah.
We'll see. She works with Kirby's art studio, so maybe that team can get some placement in there. But we'll see. And I'll be her little her booth babe. I'll get to hang out, but you're not going to see me like bringing my Spill Blood banner or anything. It's just me being there as the trophy husband.
So you're wearing a kilt, right?
No.
You said booth babe, man. I'm just 21st century. Got to get there.
That's true.
Which, funny enough, at the Huntsville Comic and Pop Expo, this happened about 3 years straight. My table was, if not across, then adjacent to this company that literally makes custom corsets and kilts.
Oh, yeah.
Which, of course, they were constantly getting people.
Yeah.
But I think it was, last year. They were across from me, and it was Friday. VIPs are coming in, and I don't know how they were able to get a booth, but there was a person that their company, a Specialty Fudge. So the VIPs through Artist Alley bypassed all of us and went straight to the Fudge. Yeah. And that went on for 3 hours straight. And so all of us are just looking at each other like, throw us a bone. It was absolutely nuts. And so, which I ended up talking to the kid who was working behind there. Apparently I think the company that he was working with, obviously not from Alabama, they were somewhere out of state. And like his next place he had to go to was like in Arizona. And so he basically had, I think, like a day and a half before that next thing was supposed to start. I'm just like, happy travels. I will admit, the Fireball Fudge was kicking as you would if you had a shot of Fireball. Right. Obviously, peanut butter fudge was quite good. I mean, it was solid stuff. It really was. It was just the fact of like, you can tell all of it, the defenders and artists in Artist Alley, where it's just like, this is nuts. We can't compete. There's just no way around it. And so, because he was getting so much of a line, that it ended up people just looking around, being like, "Oh, there are other people here too." Yeah. Which mentally we're like, "Yes, we are."
Yeah. Welcome to the con. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I will admit, within since 2022, there you can definitely tell who is like a first timer, and then starting to realize that it's just like, well, it's not just the pop culture. That there are artists of various different calibers. There are writers of different calibers too. So it's just like, these are the people that are working behind the scenes that may or may not have some sort of direct link towards whatever franchise that I like or a part of. It's not just the voice actors and the actors and so on and so forth. So I don't want to say that it kind of gives me like a weird sense of gladness that they're getting to this light bulb moment, but it does kind of I'll try to hide a smirk between the beard whenever that happens, but I think the biggest thing is people who I just do not know who they are, that have been following me, and of course whatever username that they just happen to have. And it's just like, I've been following your stuff for like the last several months, and I'm happy that you're one of my stops before whatever. And it's just like,
that's nice to hear, right?
Yeah. It's like, sure you don't mean this guy down here?
Yeah.
Which of course I'm pointing towards Mark Spears.
Right.
And they're just like, no, they're my other stop, but I'm into this. I'm like, oh, thank you.
I'll keep you in mind. Every dog has his day.
It doesn't happen often, but it's definitely one of those things that just kind of catches you off guard, as a creator.
For sure.
Let's see, things before I forget. So I know for a fact that there's been more things advertising regarding Spill Blood.
Oh, yes.
So talk a bit more about that.
Yeah, so Spill Blood, I successfully kickstarted last year, fulfilled the campaign earlier this year, and it got picked up by Keenspot, which also published Can I Scream? And Spill Blood, it's a 36-page one-shot. It's about this haunted priest that lives somewhere between heaven and hell, and he listens to people confess their sins in the confession booth by day, and then at night he goes to where these people were committing their sins, and he takes out whoever is kind of in charge of those evil ways, wherever that is, the dog fight, the drug warehouse, and so forth. So it's for fans of Ghost Rider, Spawn. I think you'll really like it, and it's my 4th collaboration with Stefano Cardicelli, and it's all black, white, and red. We decided he did ink and watercolors on the previous 3 we did, but this one we decided to do digital and just keep it black, white, and red, which it was a great look for it. And also bringing back Leo McGovern, who lettered Can I Scream? And it's just a really cool comic book. I think a lot of people will get the escapism that they're looking for in this. If you like that horror, religious horror vibes in that genre.
I think Spillblood came at a good point because we're just now starting to see the fad of the whole black, white, red.
Yeah, that was a happy accident. I started seeing black, white, and red around last year. I'm like, whoa, okay. Well, it was on a trend and didn't even know it. That is not me.
Yeah, sure.
It's not me at all. But yeah,
I want to know who your sources are, man. We gotta Watergate this.
That was a happy accident, I tell you.
But yeah, it definitely hit a really good trending spot because I happened to notice it with that, and there was another independent comic that was doing a similar thing at the same time period. I just don't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it was just one of those things that really poked out regarding it. And of course, I knew that you had Brian Silverbacks doing a cover for it because I remember him posting that several times on social media last year. And correct me if I'm wrong, but did Leo recently make a post regarding the fonts or some sort of like onomatopoeia? Something regarding with Spillblood?
Leo designed a very unique cover, which is just a special effects cover, and it's the onomatopoeia, the sound of the gun shots in Spillblood is Bracka, Brakka, and so Leo had this great idea about what if we did a cover that's just the sound effect. I'm like, that's awesome. I dig it, and I talked to Keenspot about it. They were down, and I said, can we have it printed on the same material as the blank sketch covers? I think that serves it well, and they agreed to that. They also added a foil version, and the best part about it is he got credited as cover artist. So he's a letterer, but is the cover artist. It listed in diamond for that cover. And I think that's just too cool, Yeah.
And it's an uncommon thing for sure, but it's also really nice to see the graphic art element of just using words, collaging in itself. And I like the kishiness of that cover. I really, it's one of those things where you don't really see at all. And for me personally, it's just like if I had a choice of covers, it would definitely be that one. Just because it's interesting, it makes me smile, even though the art is not as happy as the cover.
Right.
Or sorry, the story is not as happy as the cover.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, but it's just one of those things where it's kind of like my first experience with reading Black Sad. It's just like, oh yeah, it's this comic done by this Disney artist that worked on Tarzan. It's just like, oh cool. And you're reading it, you're like,
this is not Disney.
So I think just I guess tying everything together regarding just American creative that's now living in Italy, uh, new adjustments, new things, still doing your same old, and fun different ideas. Do you ever think that you're going to ever want to pitch for European companies like Glenat or Humanoids or whatever in terms
Yeah.
of trying to do stuff with them and possibly make a name as far as the European format?
Absolutely, yeah. 2000 AD, I'd love to work for them, amongst other ones you named. That's definitely on the table. Not something I wouldn't shy away from at all. There's so much opportunity with that. The big two, Marvel and DC, aren't the end all be all. That they're known for. I guess the great things to do with them, but I think there's a lot more creativity that can be involved with the European publishing houses too, and why not? Hopefully I get the opportunity to introduce myself to them during this time.
Yeah. So this has actually been something I've talked about several times throughout the years. It's just the fact of like when we look at the the standard American comic format,
Right.
you're dealing with 20 to 24 pages total, and that's if 8 to 10 of those pages haven't already been massacred by advertisements.
Right.
Which, don't get me wrong, when you look at some of the facsimile stuff of classic stuff, and you look at the old advertisements, which sea monkeys, who would have thought that you wouldn't want to advertise to sell, but the Charles Atlas ads and the X-ray goggles or whatever. I mean, you had that. You also had the mail-in orders, which that made sense to have that kind of advertisement. And I get that the similar thing now is the whatever digital site that either company has regarding their books. But I definitely feel like if they were going to be doing an advertisement for future stuff, that they could have taken a note from previews or the individual previews that they do and just be like, hey, this is the stuff that's going to be coming out within the next month or two, and have that list down there. I can understand them taking away a page space or two for that, near the end, not a QR code for a post credit you may or may not want to read. But it's definitely one of these things where and I'm not sure how much of this is just dealing to the fact of, at least within the American side of stuff, that we have conditioned ourselves to have, instant whatever, that we have to have stuff pumping out, if not weekly, then bi-weekly regarding comics. It's just, can we take a step back, make it monthly, make it a bi-monthly, let's extend the pages, have the story fleshed out so it doesn't feel like you're wasting, $5, $6, $7 on an issue, and then that causes people to want to, take something off their pull list, which then hurts whatever creative team, that's being a part of it. So it's one of these things where it's just like, there's no reason why the big two cannot learn from European comics, if not from Japanese comics, regarding just, we can reformat some stuff here and there. Doesn't have to be a giant departure, but just enough to, it's just like there's breathing room.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, flooding the market with 400 new single floppies every week is not sustainable on many levels. And just playing devil's advocate for the big two, I think they're still trying to do fan service to those that are hanging on to that age of comic book reading and collecting, which I don't blame them. They're being pulled in two different directions right now. We have the diehard fans that want things this way, and then we have the way that things are going. How do we please everybody? Maybe split your company in half, and you have a legacy one, and then you have a modern one that's I don't know, but
It's
if
so fun
anyone,
matching the gathering at this moment.
yeah,
We have
yeah,
the legacy format, the standard format, the commander
right.
format.
If anyone can do it, it has the the financial backing to and the logistical support to do it. It's those two companies that could still appease one market while growing into where things are going. But yeah, you have companies like Mad Cave that announced their manga imprint coming soon, and that they're smart. They started off as a very boutique small press publisher. It was Mark London's books, and it was a talent search winner's books. That's pretty ballsy, and it worked out for them, and they grew into more creator owned IPs, and new imprints. And I think that's people can learn a lot from that path of don't try to jump to being Marvel on your first outing. Grow your legs, learn to crawl, walk, run, and then sprint.
Yeah, which I will admit, if there isn't a local comic shop within that person's area, I can understand first getting into comics that just happens to be the easy choice. So you don't know about Hellboy, you don't know about anything that came out from like either Heavy Metal Magazine or 2000 AD or Saga even.
Right. Yeah.
So it's I can definitely understand where that, which I mean that kind of rolls in within our origin stories of just like Big Two Comics was just kind of one of the first things that we kind of got introduced outside of like say Ninja Turtles or Ghostbusters, Transformers, what have you. So with that being said, and this is like one of the things that I at least try to do whenever we've got parents that are coming in with their 12, 13, 14-year-old. It's just like, so first time I'm in a comic book store, he or she likes this or this. Do we happen to have these things? Well, yes, we do. In fact, we also have similar things that are not even a part of the big two, like Radiant Black. So it's just one of those things where the one thing I don't want to do is be like, yeah, we have Invincible.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you don't direct them to the
kid. We have Berserk.
right.
Oh man. So before we end everything off, any way particular of chance we could talk about future projects without accidentally not making these future projects happen?
Yeah, that's the trick, right?
Right.
Well, been working on something for the past couple of months with Francesca. This is a work for hire project, not creator owned, something that her and I were approached to do. Thanks from Can I Scream success and us promoting that, we were found through our promotion. And I'll take a step back and just say, like, to anyone out there who's like me, who feels like you're screaming into a vacuum, sometimes people do listen. And because of one story I posted to my Instagram, and because I selected that music, got me a job, a paying job, and Francesca won too, and we got to collaborate and get paid to collaborate with each other on this really cool project that hopefully will be announced soon. Dancing around the landmines of giving away too much information, but I think there'll be an announcement soon because they were pretty eager to get this out. And the original plan was to have a one shot that we had 30 days to do a 10-page one shot, not one shot. I'm sorry, a 10-page ash can that they gave us. They're like, we want a 10-page ash can. We're going to pump that out real quick, and then 38 more pages after that, and that'll be the full thing. The ash can didn't come out, even though we got it done in time. So I think the full project will be out soon, but it hasn't been solicited yet, so I can't say anything. But it's a really cool project that we really got to just dive deep into. There was there was 2 documentary films we watched, to get into the groove of this. That's yeah.
Right.
And there was material given to us to help give it what it needed to be, and can't wait for that to come. And then I finished writing that. Francesca's currently drawing it, and what I'm writing now is a project, a very long graphic novel, which is actually volume 3, and volume 1, which was written by another writer, isn't even out yet. So I think you're going to see that one in 2026. But that that was an interesting project, having to follow another writer, not having the other books even out yet, and having to, my volume is the end, it's the conclusion, having to wrap things up, and it's told in different timelines. And so I really it was like playing Memento, watching the movie Memento, but not seeing all of Memento.
Okay, yeah, right. Like,
I'm
assuming that you read the first 2 volumes before you started writing. Okay.
Yes. I was given access to the artwork. Was done for volume 1. The script was done for volume 2. So I had everything I needed. It was just that I'm not used to that. I'm used to starting at issue 1, and usually issue 1 of my creator-owned series, with the exception of Dream Master, which I was hired to write for Black Box. Everything's been on my creator-owned IP that I started off with, issue 1. This one is, hey, there's 100+ pages of this thing that's already out there, written by someone else, and we're hiring you to wrap it up. All right. But yeah, that's been keeping me employed. And then I got more speaking of Black Box, I got more Dream Master that I'm writing. Hopefully we'll see volume 2 in 2025, because I know there's artwork done for a lot of the issues for the second volume. I'm currently writing volume 3. And then my stuff with Brad Scott Studios, I did a book with them called Time Served. Time Served 2 is going to be crowdfunded soon. I'll probably they haven't given me the green light for issue 3 of that one, but that's coming. And they also have another title for me to start, which is really cool, because it's a very small publishing company out of Melbourne, Florida, from where I'm at. And for them to be hiring out even writing duties is pretty impressive. You usually see the person in charge writing, and then hiring out everyone else until they make enough money to start hiring writers. But they're right from the get-go, they're like, no, we're hiring writers. So, but yeah, besides that, in pitching, to whoever, I can, looking for other stuff, putting it out there. I'm out there, world.
Very mindful, very demure.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't believe that's becoming the catchphrase for the month.
Yeah.
Let's see, what was I thinking of? Oh yeah, so kind of going back to the Spill Blood. There's a Spotify mix list that you have regarding just, I guess, songs that kind of influence the story or whatever. Because the both of us have a mutual love of metal and all things heavy.
Yes.
Do you feel like the music that you listen to influence anything regarding the scripts or the art direction that you want to go with your individual projects?
I would say music is a huge influence on all of my projects. It can be anywhere from a title to the theme, and more. So yeah, music is definitely a big proponent of my creativity in comic books. I've done other Spotify playlists too. There's one for Recount, there's one for Brackish. So yeah, I think music plays a big part. I love the marriage of comic books and music. I think that, and we might see something along that line soon in one of these projects that are coming out soon.
So the so this is going back maybe 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, but I ended up creating like a drawing playlist. It ended up being about 14 and a half hours long worth of stuff. Which, I mean, you put it on shuffle, you don't care, sort of thing. Which ended up being the perfect driving playlist to keep my self awake from Alabama all the way up to Baltimore, because that's 14 and a half hours of driving. But the thing that I've noticed, it's really not so much putting on music to work on commission. I've noticed this more whenever I try doing storyboarding and panel work. When I get a page, or I'm about to start the next page with whatever, and I'm reading it and I'm looking at it, I'm actually searching for a different album or a different genre or whatever to go along with what I feel like the flow or the beat of this thing is going to be happening. And it was just one of these kind of like subconscious things, and I didn't really notice it until about 2 years ago when I was working on a pitch with Reed Beeman, Lilywood, and I was swapping up different things. So like when it got to I guess dialogue, interpersonal stuff, the music would be a little bit lighter, and then when it got to the things where you're not sure where the darkness is coming from, and that's where the mood had changed. So I was listening to Bloodborne for no reason whatsoever. So it was like listening to that, and there was another soundtrack. What was it? It was a horror movie. It was like soundtrack. I just don't remember what it was. But it was just like one of these random things. And of course, Spotify hates me because it can't predict what it's going to recommend for its daily mix or the day list thing, which I usually crack up whenever I click the day list just to see what title it gives me. And some of the stuff it even recommends within that day list doesn't even match the stuff. But yeah, that's definitely something that has kind of piqued my interest more, and something that now that I am cognitive of the fact that I'm doing this, that I'm actually starting to think more and more regarding script and pitches, just like, well, what's going to match this, and hopefully can I find a certain album that I'm thinking of on Spotify. Don't have to search on YouTube and deal with the ads like right in the middle of a song.
Oh god,
I did that one time while I was for some reason I did not search it on Spotify. I was listening to the soundtrack to Gladiator on YouTube, and it's specifically the song where it's like near the tail end of the movie, where
Maximus?
Yes, where Maximus, as technically is about to keel over and die, and so you have this whole, sweeping whatever. And for some reason, I was just like, Maximus dying music in Gladiator, whatever. And someone had basically ripped the movie, or at least that whole part from there to the credits, threw it up on YouTube, and it gets to like the crescendo ad.
Terrible.
And it's just like, it's that moment where it's just like you want your wingman to be your wingman at the date, and then they just decide right there. It's just like, not what I want you to do, man.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. That's YouTube for you.
Yeah. So I've trusted YouTube less and less when it comes to music, and just strictly focused on Spotify and keep it within that. I know people that can listen to podcasts when they're doing stuff. I can't.
Me
it's
neither.
distracting. It really is, because it's just like, now I want to know who so-and-so killed so-and-so, and how they found out through a measly piece of DNA that should not have existed, and within the the CSI aspect. I'm like, because now it's just like, I'm not even touching my stuff. I'm just like, with all that. I know I've been told way too much as far as just listening to the Old Gods of Appalachia podcast, which I don't know if you know anything about that.
No.
Okay. So, as you can honestly guess with the title, it's basically Prohibition, Dust Bowl era South, and the history that kind of goes within that. But there are things that kind of go bump in the night within the hoot and the holler and all this sort of stuff. So you do have the Lovecraftian aspects of the unknown, in that there are these old gods that do exist within the Appalachians, and the parts of these forests that are so dense that you get lost in, kind of aspects. But it gained so much traction that an RPG company actually reached out to them, just like, hey, we want to build a module, basically. And they're like, okay, cool. Would you like for us to use one of our stories as the basis for a campaign? And so it did extremely well on Kickstarter, and we've sold out twice in the store.
Oh, wow.
And,
yeah.
Was that me?
That was me. We live really close to an intersection.
Gotcha. Ironically enough, also pretty close to an intersection. So it was just like, for some reason, I was just like, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, the basis, as far as just like the creative aspect, it's not like Arkham Horror, where for a fact it's going to be somewhere up in New England, and you've got gangsters with Tommy guns, and Cthulhu just happens to be sitting in the docks of the Hudson River or wherever. It's not like that whatsoever. It's very landlocked. I mean, yeah, sure, you got swamps and lakes or whatever, and things that might exist in it, but creatures like the Leshen from The Witcher would be fitting within that aspect of that. Which what was that urban legend, the Black Eyed Kids, things like that that kind of exist. So I recommend you possibly look into that.
Sounds good.
Yeah, Jonathan, thank you so much for taking time.
My pleasure, Thomas.
Well, is it really so much taking time out of your day, or is it figuring out the logistics of 8 hours to get this together?
Yeah, it all worked out.
It definitely works out for sure. But yes, thank you so much for coming out.
Yeah, man, my pleasure.
Dropping the knowledge. If people want to reach out and follow you on social media, where?
Go to my website, jonathanhedrickcomics.com. That's a hub for everything. You can find links to all my socials. You can find links to the web stores for my publishers where you can buy my stuff. You can sign up to my Substack. You can donate to my Ko-fi. You can link to my Global Comics, all those good things. So I direct people to my webpage, and then you can find everything else from there.
Mm-hmm. So Jonathan is actually one of probably about 10 different Substacks that I'm signed up for. So do yourself a favor, sign up for the Substack. It is completely free. If you decide that you also want to subscribe to a Substack, you can definitely do that too. You also get some little added extra shenanigans while you're at it. Well, not really shenanigans. It's the good stuff. The good stuff.
The goods. The goods.
Yeah, grazie.
Right.
All right. So, yes, thank you again. Tell Francesca I said hello.
Absolutely.
And try not to relay that joke.
That's fine. That was good.
I don't want it to backfire. But yes, thank you so much.
All right. Yeah, my pleasure, Thomas. Thanks for the invite.
Yes. Thanks. Oops, sorry. Didn't mean to cut you off that quick. Yes, but yes, thank you. All right. So there you heard it right from the horse's mouth. Mr. Jonathan Hedrick himself. It has been awesome to have him here as part of our guest for Lines on the Page. And just being able to pick his brain regarding anything and all things regarding writing comics, Kickstarter, and the highs and lows of all of that. Now, if you just happen to wonder, where is Haven Comics? Well, I can tell you where. We are located at 1871 Slaughter Road, Suite F in Madison, Alabama. Not that far away from the Huntsville Space and Rocket Center. Actually, about a good 10-minute drive unless you get stuck in traffic. Then good luck. It's close to an hour. And if you happen to like this show, any other show that we happen to do, please remember to like and subscribe, commenting, sharing, even just telling your friend word of mouth about our stuff on YouTube. You can definitely find us there. And if you want to know where you can find me on social media, you can find me at through my link tree, or you can just type in at tpriceartworks into your search bar on social media. Now, one thing I want to let you people know is that coming in October, I'm doing a daily drawing prompt. It's called Soulstober. And it's basically going to be 31 pieces of art with different characters throughout the first 3 Dark Souls games. So if you know anything about that franchise, you know what's up. If you don't know what's up, you probably want to start educating yourself real quick because it's going to be nice. And that is about it. Thank you all for coming in, and we'll see you when we see you.